So, quick question for you. What do you consider a mature male human to be? Is it age related? 18, 21, 40, 60? Is it what they're doing? Is it holding down a full time job or being a parent or being in retirement? Is there really such a thing as a mature male human being? Unfortunately, I don't have any of those answers. But in today's video, we're going to talk about mature male tarantulas. I'm Jay. This is Jay's Cryptic Creatures. Come on, let's learn something together. So if you're newer to the tarantula keeping hobby, you might be wondering what people make the big deal about having a female tarantula. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how we can potentially sex these tarantulas before the ultimate molt. So female tarantulas typically get larger than the males. They're typically more long-lived by a significant margin. Maybe a typical male, if it's an old world or a faster growing species, might live 3 to 5 years. The female might live 15 plus, potentially 20 plus. If it's a slower growing species, the female might be able to live upwards of 40 years. The females typically have maybe a more interesting color palette or pattern. The males tend to get a little bit more leggy, a little gangly. The colors are often muted. Again, these are typical, not always. There are some tarantulas that the males, after their ultimate molt, are quite beautiful. Again, we're talking in generalities. So when your male has his ultimate molt, there are significant changes that occur. One, his eating will slow down and eventually stop. And then you'll see the behavior change in the sense that the spider will become more wandery. So you'll see him kind of walking around the enclosure, kind of like they're on a mission. And frankly, they are. So once that ultimate molt happens, the sole purpose for that male is to go breed. And like I said, they'll stop eating. So with breeding on their mind, they'll starve themselves to death trying to find that mate. So with that lead in, let's talk about some ways to identify a male tarantula before the ultimate molt and after his ultimate molt. So some tarantulas are sexually dimorphic, meaning the males and females look quite different. The M. balfouri is a good example of this. So this image here is of a female, my female actually, balfouri. You can see that she is more gray and silver. The carapace has those blue hues, but they're on the more silver gray side. Over here is a male balfouri. The legs are significantly more blue, and the carapace is that deeper, kind of more navy. And you can tell these tarantulas look significantly different. Another way to identify a male versus a female is called ventral sexing, or actually looking at the underside of the tarantula. In particular, what you're looking for is the female's epigastric furrow or flap, if you want to be informal, or lack thereof to help determine male or female. I am truthfully terrible at this. I can't seem to find a difference. Some people are quite good. I'm just not. For me, I use some different methods that we're going to talk about in a moment. For me, the best way to determine male or female is obtaining a pretty intact molt if you can. So after the spider molts, you can grab the molt out of the enclosure and soak it in some warm water with a little bit of Dove soap to help get it moist and kind of make it flexible. And what you want to do is look at the abdomen in between the book lungs, and again try to identify that epigastric furrow and or the spermatheca if you can find that. If you can find the flap or the spermatheca, you got a female. If When you're using a toothpick or something small, you're trying to locate a literal flap that's not present, chances are you have a male. Tom Moran of Tom's Big Spiders actually has a fantastic article helping to identify this. That's where a lot of these images come from. So shout out to Tom. A link to that full article is going to be in the description below. Take your time and read it. It's quite interesting, and you'll certainly learn something from that. So at a certain point, the tarantula, if it's a male, will have his what is called the ultimate molt or the last molt. Uh, During that time, the molt cycle is a little bit longer. They'll stay buried a little bit longer. These aren't telltale signs, but something to keep an eye on. When they emerge, they will have some physical changes that should be pretty obvious. So the first are tibial hooks. So the legs next to the pedipalps, the first set of legs, will have an actual physical set of hooks. Try to see some images here. So what the male will do during mating will prop up the female's legs to kind of get an angle for insertion, insemination. Not all tarantulas get these tibial hooks, but that's a telltale sign that that spider is now a mature male. Another way is to identify the emboli. So the pedipalps on the spider as they're growing are going to be kind of sleek, sort of look like their feet in general. If it is a mature male, they'll, like I said, develop emboli, which changes the tip of the pedipalp. Some people refer to it as a boxing glove. So it's a little bit of a bulb that comes at the end of the pedipalp that they will use to store the sperm for use for insemination. I'll try to throw some images up here. It's kind of hard to see. Frankly, the first time I had a spider mature out male, I noticed there was a significant difference, but I was on the fence. I was like, is this really what they're supposed to look like? Is it not what they're supposed to look like? And again, I reached out to one of my breeder friends, and he confirmed that's what emboli is. And then from there, it's pretty obvious to spot once you have a couple mature out male. So your spider matured out male. What do you do next? Well, in my opinion, there's a couple different options. So the first option is to kind of do nothing. Enjoy the spider, right? It looks a little bit different than it used to. Chances are you're going to see it out quite a bit more, and he will live, depending on the species, maybe a couple months to several years. During this time, enjoy him as a pet, and continue on with your day. Option 2 is to breed the spider yourself. I am by no means a breeder. Maybe in the future I'll do that. But you can breed that male tarantula with one of your females and get an egg sac and continue the cycle. The third option, which is the one I typically implore because I'm not a breeder, is reach out to a breeder and pass your male along to that person and allow them to continue on the life cycle. Quite often, in doing so, what you'll have an exchange of like store credit or maybe a couple slings, things of that nature. Again, I don't really stress on it. For me, it's the enjoyment of raising up the spider and spending the time with it and then passing it along. If I get credit or slings, that's cool. But again, I don't really harp on it too much. If you go the route of passing your spider along to a breeder, if I would recommend somebody local or reaching out to somebody before maybe an upcoming reptile show, so then you can do a physical handoff. Typically, that's just significantly easier, especially if you're not accustomed to packing up a spider and shipping it across country. You're risking, potentially doing that incorrectly and causing death on that spider. If you are a little bit more comfortable, there are websites and different Facebook groups that are always looking for mature males. Check out the terms and conditions of the groups and whatever social media you have, you may or may not be allowed technically to do that, but that's an option as well. I've shipped spiders from Massachusetts to California, and it has gone well. Um, but again, local is just tends to be better, and you keep it within inside of your community. So this was a bit more of an educational video. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Sexing tarantulas takes significant practice. It is not easy. You know, it's small. They're hard to work with, the molts, meaning, frankly, at this point, I don't really sex them anymore. I just kind of, again, I'm not a breeder, so I just, you know, get what I get. I enjoy growing them up. I enjoy seeing that sling to juvenile to adult stage, and I kind of like the surprise of, oh look, it's a male. So it's something that is interesting. I used to be way more into it and documenting it, but at this point, I just really like just keeping the spiders. With all that being said, please like, subscribe, and we can continue learning about tarantulas and snakes and tegus and other cryptic creatures together. Until next time.